Well done.
Well, Craig, thanks for joining me for this conversation about the club. The first question I want to ask you is, from this time last year to now, where have we improved in your mind as a football club?
So as a football club, well, there's a whole lot of ways. So I'll start with the on-field piece. Obviously, we've made a lot of change. We've continued to beef up the resourcing around our players, which is really important, and to consolidate in the VFL program as well. So that development pathway, I've spoken about it before. We've probably since 22 gone from 6.5 full-time staff around our players, coaching-wise, up to 9 now. And obviously with Blake, who did a wonderful job with our VFL program last year going across to Richmond. Dale Tapping, losing Dale was huge for us. Yeah. But we've fallen on our feet from a resourcing perspective, and with Cam Joyce joining us as well full-time in a like-for-like spot. So we feel that part of our program is really well placed. Mm-hmm. Off-field, we made a lot of change in 23, so it's all about consolidation and clarity for us on why we exist as a football club. Obviously, high performance through both our programs, and then to bring some joy to our members. So clarifying that and then having our work practices flow from each of those aspirations is really important, as well as what we contribute back to the community. So it's getting better, being more clear around our purpose, and then consolidating through action off-field.
What about culturally? Have we made a shift there as well? Are we better in that area? Do we need to be better in that area?
Culture's an interesting one. What is it? This intangible?
What do you think it is?
Yeah,
because you heard me try to explain it at a luncheon recently.
We did.
I don't know if I did a very good job.
You did a great job. I have probably a shorter version of the same thing, and it was taught to me by an SAS commander actually, and it resonated years ago. And it was your culture is reflected in what your people are doing when you're not watching.
Right.
So culturally, have we changed? I think on and off field, we really are aspiring on the off-field component to have a member and fan first focus, and we're not perfect.
No.
And there's things that we'll continue to improve on. And then the on-field piece is high performance culture. What our players, through our leadership, into the standards we set around our football department, both the staff, but most importantly the players led by the leadership group. So I feel there's been cultural change in that sense, and hopefully an elevation of standard in terms of what they expect of themselves and who they represent.
Who drives that? Is that something that you drive from the top down?
Leadership, yeah. So obviously the board has to be cognizant
aligned,
and aligned. I'm big on it. I've seen it work before, and it aligns people if you give them clarity as to purpose and why we're here. So I like to drive that. But we've got great leaders across the whole club, both in the off-field section, but also Brad and Daniel McPherson in the football department. And with our players, we've obviously had a lot of focus on Zach and Andy over the last couple of years, but it was time now to increase that number, that volume, and Mason and Kyle and Nick Martin too. That's going to be really exciting. I'm super excited about that. I had a coffee with Andy yesterday, and they're excited about growth and delegation of responsibility and clarity and spreading what that load looks like across our playing group.
Are you cognizant too, when you're drafting young kids now, that you want a component of this leadership that's apparent in their background or their personality?
Yeah, I mean, talent is always number one,
yes,
of course, and that is a critical factor, but you need to combine that with the person and hopefully make an assessment of what you want an Essendon player to look like, and in all facets, the professionalism, the drive, the social conscience, the whole lot. It's not easy.
No.
It's not like going to Woolworths and picking out a player, but it's something that within the recruiting expertise of our department, we've got a number of our guys, Rob Forster Knight, Darren Ferrugia, Rowan O'Brien, have been doing this for many years. In Rowan's case, I think probably 30 years, but the other two certainly well above 10 to 15. So there's this knowledge and expertise that they have, and us giving more clarity through the broader department, whether that's a connection to coaching, the wellbeing guys, with our recruiting team, it can only help clarify that message.
There's always an impatience around Essendon, particularly in the last 5-10 years. We haven't had success for a long time.
Yeah.
And I know you feel that, but what, in terms of the messaging for the fans and the people that probably are going to watch this, what is it that you are saying for them to look at in terms of what they're going to see when the team goes out on the field this year?
Yeah, so the first bit, I guess, is our aspiration. Before I deal with that, is we want to make finals.
Yeah,
we're not shying away from that. We want to constantly improve. I've spoken about this as well, and Brad has. And we recognise it's a hard comp, so nothing comes easy, and we've got to work for it. But what I'd like to hope that our members see is a real shift in how we're going about it. Hopefully they can see some excitement in the team, in the youth that brings. You know, obviously being the fourth youngest list, that's one aspect. Well, we've got a good group of 23 to 27-year-olds. It's not like we're going from, down to 18-year-olds. We've got a good group that hopefully we've put the resourcing around. They're ready to elevate. We're seeing little snippets of that. So I'd like to see improvement in that group that our members and supporters recognise. And then the way we play, obviously for the coaches, not for me, but I was pretty encouraged over the last couple of weeks with hopefully some improvement in how we defend the ground and how we move the footy. But I'll let Brad deal with all that.
We didn't really, as a club, we didn't talk about a rebuild or a reset or anything, but it really has been a massive change that's taken place on the field at the same time.
Yeah, look, excuses our members don't want to hear, so completely recognise that. We've used the word reset, whatever you want to use. Deal with the facts really, and we've made 20 list changes in the last 2 years. So, and there's been no change in approach 23 to 24. We made 11 list changes and 9 last year. So, and that was all around building capacity in terms of the list and its balance. In different ways, using different mechanisms. So that is a lot of change. And it's going to take time to settle. But as I said, we've still got 20 odd players and certainly a great group of 23 to 27-year-olds who have been here longer than that period. And I think are really clear with the expectation that they set for themselves. And then, of course, the expectation we all set on them as well as the on-field product.
Recruiting, and I don't want to go backwards with the recruiting because I think that's like a wasted exercise. But in terms of going forward, are we in a better position now with our identification of talent and what it is we're actually building? Because I see as one of the problems for Essendon over the years is there's been so many chops and changes, coaching changes, that type of thing, other things that have been going on. There hasn't been a really solid set foundation or a philosophy that everyone's really had time to develop or believe in and trust. Yeah,
and the other bit for Essendon, coming out of COVID, we had one of the most under-resourced recruiting departments in the country, in my view. So we've worked hard to build that capacity in terms of numbers. But in terms of clarity, I think we have made a fair change in trying to identify what we're after in terms of what makes an Essendon player, but also in terms of trying to address list balance as well, which is really important too. And we're not quite there in terms of that list balance, but hopefully there's more options for match committee. You know, I mean, in an ideal world, you know, the way I've always looked at list management is you want to create an oversupply of talent at some point. So, like a Brisbane, you know, that they're in such an enviable position where they can lose good players and yet present such a wonderful team. But that's taken 8 years. That was their 8th year last year, and a couple of them early on, at least 2 or 3 were in the bottom half or bottom quarter of the ladder. So that's the great prototype, and there's a number of others that I've seen over the years, including ones I've been involved with. And that word patience people don't like, but hopefully we'll start to see a bit of that growth.
Rob, at the top end talent, do you think? Is it there?
Got to grow, Zach's obviously our leader in any team in the country, and we've really, my personal view, I've really admired him from a distance, but you know, Jordan Ridley injuries over the last couple of years, he's in that category in the area of the ground he plays. Nick Martin's made great steps. Durham's made great steps. Hopefully, Shields back on the back into an area of the ground where we see his best footy, which can grow. But I certainly don't look at it just at that. It's, you know, how many C graders can become B graders? How many B graders can become A minus?
Is that coaching, do you think, as much as anything, or confidence, or?
I think it's both. So obviously having hunger's important and work ethic, and I'm confident in those areas. A bit of luck's important, but most importantly, you know, as well as high performance can be boring. It's repeating good habits every day, and I think that's a bit of coaching, a bit of self-autonomy, and drive, and then getting the work done and having a bit of good fortune as well.
You never want to put too much on the shoulders of young players, but it is so exciting when you see like genuine potential type talent out on the field playing for you, like Keiko and Caddy too. Like, I mean, just put a smile to your face. And the same right across the supporter base of the Essendon Football Club. Yeah,
it's incredible what youth brings with exuberance. But when I think of them, the reason I smiled is more because I know what they're like as young men. They're just infectious. They've got
and that's
that
a great
type of personality. So, and probably there hasn't been a lot of that type of personality within the group, which is really important to bring the energy. But they both work hard. Obviously, they're mates from school, and their other mate, Zach Johnson's just joined us as well. He's an exciting young player coming off the shoulder recon. But those two, look, without putting any pressure on them, hopefully they listen, they learn real quick, they implement, and they've been real pros just in a short space of time. And I'm really confident that they'll get the best out of themselves over the journey, and hopefully there's a lot of fun ahead for our supporters there.
Is there an area off field that we still need to work on, do you think, as a club?
Yeah, look, well, the job's not done off field by any stretch. We've got lots to do in embedding good practices to make sure our member satisfaction's there. There's lots we can do here to make this a more communal place for our supporters to enjoy, like they did at Windy Hill. And there's stuff we've got planned if we can ever get airport approval too, that hopefully will land, stuff with our history. So there's that bit. The commercial side of our business is always a challenge, especially when the economy's a bit off. So we can always get better in that area. The big one for me is community. And all clubs had it over the COVID period. But we set such a high standard in the past with the work we've done in the community, and we're really striving to elevate back up to the levels that are appropriate for Essendon and our football club. So that's certainly that area. And then footy's a constant journey of growth, obviously, and we keep analysing each area, whether it's performance psychology, the coaches and development, the game strategy, the S&C and medical staff. Very good at self-assessing in an objective way as well. Probably the best way to do it, I think, is if you're harshest critics in the mirror. It's always a good start.
Yep. I mean, there are two ways of getting talent to your club. One is to go to the draft. The other is to acquire it through free agency or whatever. I'm assuming Essendon is gearing itself up to make a play in that space.
Yeah, we geared ourselves up for flexibility. So the Kaka opportunity wasn't just to get high-end talent in an area of the ground that was really important for us, but it gave us the opportunity through the system to create draft selections both last year that we used, ended up with 2 second picks as well as Isaac, and then we've obviously got the 2 firsts and the 2 seconds going into this year. So we'll look to pull all levers, whether that's the draft, whether that's acquisitions through free agency or trade. We'll look at all of that, and like all good clubs were out to market last year for opportunity, and it's about hopefully the right fit in the area of need that's going to really help us elevate.
I know you won't give me the names of anybody that you're targeting, but a lot of clubs out there are doing the same thing.
They are.
And the target is actually formed a long way out.
It is.
Are we down the track with any players out there? Do you believe that we can acquire over the next couple of years?
Oh, we're certainly in the mix, no doubt, and this is not just new to Essendon, but and other clubs, but at least 3 to 4 players that we.
What's their age profile? Is that really important when you look at that type of player?
It can be, I mean, from our point of view, it's making sure we've got enough youth coming in, but having that right balance of experience, but more positional need for us is the critical one, and high-end talent.
Okay, when you start picking up the paper or hearing the radio talk about the fact that some players, the offer that reportedly St Kilda threw at Finn Callahan, do you choke on your Wheaties in the morning?
I do. How do they do
That's
it?
where it's going.
It's amazing. It's incredible. And you don't know how much is real and how much is not. That's a big offer. So,
could Essendon accommodate a player on $2 million a year now?
Well,
that's about 10% of your salary.
It's a lot. And the way, it's constantly growing. We certainly have capacity to acquire. The TPP has been managed really well for a number of years, so we're in a really good space to reward existing players and then to laterally acquire.
Well, Craig, it's been great catching up and having a chat. Hopefully we can do it again down the track.
Thanks, Tim. It's been great to see you.